fire. I saw people falling and screaming and crying and tripping.
Spears of fire, 2 of them at least, came across right into the group about 15 feet from me.
8 people were injured in Boulder, Colorado yesterday after being attacked by a man with a makeshift flamethrower. Good afternoon. The victims of the attack are 4 men and 4 women, ranging in age from 52 to 88 years old.
Police have arrested 1 man in connection with the attack. Police have identified him as 45-year-old Mohammed Sabri Soleiman.
The initial response by our officers, we were on scene very quickly. When we arrived, we encountered multiple victims that were injured with injuries consistent with burns and other injuries. While our officers and paramedics and fire department personnel got those victims quickly to the hospital, our officers were pointed out, a suspect was pointed out to our officers on the scene.
The FBI have described the incident as a targeted terror attack. They say the suspect shouted "Free Palestine" before the attack, which targeted a volunteer group called Run for Their Lives, which organizes events to call for the release of Israeli hostages still held by Hamas in Gaza. The attack has sparked shock and concern throughout the U.S. and around the world, including here in Toronto.
Following the incident, Toronto Police said it would be maintaining a heightened presence at schools, community centers, and places of worship. CTV's Janice Golding joins us live now with more on the increased police presence. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. Yes, well, we're live right now outside the Promenade Mall in Thornhill, where community members have been sharing with us their sentiments about the attack in Colorado. Every Sunday since October 7th, 2023, community members here have participated in the Run for Their Lives, walking the perimeter of the mall, calling for the return of hostages held by Hamas. These run-walk events are held around the world, and as we've learned, it was a Run for Their Lives chapter in Boulder, Colorado that was targeted yesterday by a man wielding a makeshift flamethrower and Molotov cocktails. A 45-year-old is accused of yelling "Free Palestine" during the attack that injured 8. This latest incident comes amidst a recent uptick in violence against the Jewish community in the United States, including 2 murders outside a Jewish museum in Washington and an arson attack on Pennsylvania's Governor's Josh Shapiro's home on Passover. As a result, both Toronto and York Regional Police have issued statements saying they're monitoring the situation closely, adding that out of an abundance of caution, we continue to maintain a heightened presence at places of worship and faith-based community locations across the region. We stand in solidarity with all communities impacted by acts of violence.
Initial reaction was definitely shock and mortified. Scared. I mean, we bring this program, this Run for Their Lives, every Sunday here, and it could have easily have been our community, myself, my husband, anybody.
We look at the situation that happened in Boulder. We also look at things that have happened elsewhere, for instance, in Washington just last week. And if we look at all these different events that have been happening across Canada, if we look at them in isolation, we miss the big picture of the pattern which has been occurring and growing around the world of this hatred and these attacks.
Now, police say they will have a heightened and visible presence at community centers, places of worship, and schools, saying that the safety and well-being of residents is their top priority. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. Halton Police are searching for suspects following an attempted vehicle theft and police chase in Oakville. It happened around 3:30 in the morning in a parking lot on Spears Road near the 403 and 4th line. Police say they attempted to steal a vehicle in the area, but were spotted by an officer. The suspects took off in a pickup truck and were chased by police, but managed to get away. An officer was treated for minor injuries. Police are asking anybody with information to come forward. Still to come, Prime Minister Mark Carney's meeting with Canada's first ministers in Saskatchewan today. We'll have more on the discussion, which is expected to focus on deepening trade ties within Canada a little later in the newscast. Wildfires are burning across the country with more than 25,000 people in 3 provinces forced from their homes.
In Manitoba alone, around 17,000 residents have been forced to leave, with many airlifted from the Flin Flon area.
We've never experienced anything like this before. So it was very, very kind of scary.
Thousands of people are staying in evacuation centers in Winnipeg. That is creating another issue, as officials say they do not have enough accommodations in hotels in the city. Indigenous leaders are calling on the government to suspend ongoing and upcoming conferences to make room in hotels for evacuees.
In Saskatchewan, roughly 8,000 people have been relocated due to wildfires, but provincial authorities say that number could rise over the coming days. There are 15 active wildfires burning in the province, including 6 which are not contained.
And 49 wildfires are burning in Alberta, with more than half considered out of control. Roughly 1,300 Albertans have been displaced by the fires. 9 communities across the province have been placed under evacuation orders. CTV's Scott Hurst has been following the wildfire situation across the country. He joins us live now with the latest. Scott, what can you tell us?
Michelle, I want to begin with the latest remarks that we've just recently heard in the last hour from premiers and the Prime Minister at that meeting in Saskatoon to talk interprovincial trade. But beginning their remarks by offering their thoughts and prayers, and Premier Scott Moe, who's hosting the gathering, commenting on the shared resources from many Canadian provinces helping in the firefight, as well as the federal government and also U.S. partners as well, providing crew and equipment to help with this dramatic firefight across the prairie provinces. You mentioned more than 25,000 people forced from their homes across the 3 provinces. Here's more from the Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, Kyra Wilson, talking about the significant impact on First Nations in that province.
People are feeling safe that have been evacuated, but now, they have nothing with them. So I know everyone's been coming together, getting donations and providing whatever necessities that they need. But then there's a second part to that, and is what are people going to be going home to? And that's, another major concern for people.
Yeah, so of course being safe is one thing, but of course then there's so much stress and concern about your community and wondering what it might look like when you return home. Now, throughout the last couple of days, the hot, dry weather has continued across much of the prairie provinces, and that's allowed some of the fires to grow. But there are some favorable conditions in the forecast. Some parts of the prairies expecting cooler weather and even some rain, some much needed precipitation, but it obviously won't be enough to change the overall dynamic of this early destructive fire season, but it could help some localized fires at least stop the spread in some communities. As we're looking at a map of Manitoba, specifically the number of fires and active fires that are of concern burning out of control in that province.
And before we let you go, Scott, can we talk about the smoke from these fires? Is that becoming an issue further afield?
Of course, the immediate concern is the acute threat of the fire, but these fires are already impacting a lot of people thousands of kilometers away. As we know, smoke knows no bounds, and it's impacting people across the border as well in the United States. States like Minnesota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, and Michigan all seeing the impact of the thick smog, particularly over the weekend taking over Minneapolis, where residents there were worried about enjoying outdoor activities. Now, this worsening air quality, of course, isn't just uncomfortable. It can be potentially harmful, particularly for those with underlying breathing concerns and breathing conditions. And according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, air quality has reached unhealthy levels in some parts of those states that I mentioned.
Oh, that's sorry to hear that. CTV's Scott Hurst live for us in the National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
And back in the city, the intersection of King and Church has been closed to traffic and will remain shuttered until August.
This closure is happening a month ahead of schedule as crews work to repair aging water mains in the area, as well as streetcar tracks. CTV's Natalie Johnson has been following the closure, and she joins us live with more. Natalie, quite the disruption.
Yeah, exactly, Michelle. This work is very disruptive. It's very loud. And as you say, it's only just getting started. This intersection will remain closed to all vehicles for all of June, all of July, and into August.
In the latest traffic tie-up, the intersection of King Street East and Church is now sealed off for the better part of the summer. Construction causing congestion.
Construction is closing more streets. Using this way, it's going to make nothing but the more difficult for the public.
Heavy traffic over there. People are going to be late, affecting everyone's life.
The 142-year-old water main deep down below was supposed to be replaced, but what the city calls unexpected underground utility conflicts have altered the plan. A portion of the water main that was supposed to be replaced will now be relined. A closure that is starting 4 weeks sooner than planned.
a project like this didn't just sneak up on the City of Toronto. There needs to be much better coordination with the TTC, with utilities, with the roadwork, and the fact that residents were only given 24 hours notices. That's going to have a huge impact on people's commutes.
The TTC will replace its own aging infrastructure during this closure, rebuilding its streetcar tracks.
It's a four-way intersection for us. The tracks going in every direction has been on a slow order for about a year or more. So we had planned to replace this intersection anyway. So coordinating with the city, waiting for them to do their work. Then, of course, when they finish theirs, top it all off, we'll go in and do ours.
The intersection will remain closed until at least mid-August.
And in the meantime, all TTC vehicles, buses, and streetcars will need to divert around this intersection. Reporting live, I'm Natalie Johnson. Nathan and Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. A note for subway riders, there's an early closure on Line 1 to be aware of this week. Beginning today, service between Finch and Eglinton Station will end at 11 p.m. The early closure will last through Thursday. It's because of tunnel maintenance. Shuttle buses will be running instead. Lawrence and North York Centre stations will be closed, while all other stations will be open for customers to purchase fares or connect to bus routes. Regular service is set to resume each morning at around 6 a.m.
Meanwhile, tokens, tickets, and day passes are no longer accepted as valid fares on the TTC. Starting today, the only way to pay a TTC fare is with cash, debit, or credit, or using the Presto system. The transit agency was set to stop accepting those older fares at the end of last year, but the deadline was extended until this past Sunday. There will be no refunds or exchanges for unused fares.
And the city is temporarily increasing the tax to stay at hotels over the summer. The municipal accommodation tax will be increased by more than 2% to 8.5%. The increased rate takes effect today and will remain in effect until the end of July. The tax provides funding for Destination Toronto, which supports the city's tourism industry, along with programs and services for tourists. The Greater Hotel Association says the city is hiking the tax to cover costs associated with hosting FIFA World Cup games in 2026. And Mayor Olivia Chow previously stated that additional revenue from the tax could also be used to attract even more events and conferences to the city.
More news in a moment.
But first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. It was chilly at times this weekend, but now things are heating up this week. Let's bring in Lindsay Morrison with a look at the current conditions. Hey, Lindsay, how are things looking outside?
Hi, Nathan. Yes, it's been a really nice start to the new week after a weekend that was chilly at times. That might even be an understatement, but we are already feeling a little bit of heat, and we will really notice it into the day tomorrow. It is 21 degrees right now at Pearson Airport, a little cooler in areas like Ajax and Clarington, 13 degrees, 14 at the Toronto Islands, and 15 in the city of Oakville. Here's a look at the winds. Right now, they're coming from the west and southwesterly directions, and that southwest flow helping bump up our temperature. We've got a beautiful blue sky right now, even though a little bit of wildfire smoke is drifting its way into southern Ontario. That will be at play over the next couple of days here, so we'll talk about that coming up. But today at a glance, sunny, seasonal. 23 is our forecast daytime high. Tomorrow, it's going to be hot and humid. We'll talk all about it ahead. For now, Michelle, over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Well, amid U.S. President Donald Trump's calls for Canada to become the 51st state, the federal government is turning to Europe to find new trading partners.
CTV's Judy Trin has more on how Canadian companies could potentially benefit from defense contracts overseas.
At the country's largest defense trade show, Donald Trump's threats of annexation are making it challenging for American companies to sell their products. Canada, which initially planned to buy all of its next-generation fighter jets from Lockheed Martin, is now reviewing the contract.
We are supporting the review that's ongoing right now, and that will move to the government for final decisions.
While 16 jets from Lockheed Martin have been ordered, 72 other jets could be purchased from Swedish company Saab. The runner-up is suddenly back in contention.
We've worked with the Canadian government.
Saab's pitch for the jets and other weapons it wants to sell to Canada is that it will partner with Canadian companies to make military equipment here.
We would really build up a presence here and look to engage in a manufacturing capability, which is what we proposed under the previous fighter program, and is certainly what we'll propose under an airborne early warning program through partnerships with companies like Bombardier.
To reduce reliance on the U.S., Canada announced it would join the Rearm Europe program, a $1 trillion manufacturing initiative.
If this is about the rearmament and reindustrialization of European companies and on their continent, that isn't necessarily good for Canada and our market. We need to be more productive. We need to see growth in the Canadian economy.
To reach the NATO 2% spending target by 2030, the government has to approve major projects like fighter jets and submarines. That involves getting rid of red tape.
Our commitment as a government is we want to make sure that we streamline procurement process in Canada. We make it more agile, more flexible.
Regardless of who Canada buys from, the Americans, the Europeans, or homegrown manufacturers, Canada at this point does not have enough soldiers to operate the equipment. The Canadian Forces is still in need of 15,000 recruits to be at full force. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is meeting with Canada's First Ministers in Saskatoon today. The talks are expected to focus on trade within Canada. Premier Doug Ford took aim at U.S. President Donald Trump ahead of the meeting.
President Trump is, he sits back and says, we don't need Canada, but he needs the 1.3 or 1.4 billion barrels of oil that we ship down there. He doesn't need Canada, but he needs the aluminum from Quebec and the high-grade nickel from Ontario and the uranium from Saskatchewan and the potash from Saskatchewan, and the list keeps going on and on and on. So we want to make sure we diversify our trade around the world rather than relying on one person. I say one person instead of one country because I know a lot of Americans don't feel the same way as President Trump does.
We're in the process of redefining our relationship with the United States. That's ongoing. Mr. LeBlanc and others leading those discussions, but working very much in partnership around this table in terms of our priorities and how we're defining it, but also taking matters very much into our own hands.
And CTV's Colton Prale is in Saskatoon and joins us live with more. So, Colton, what can Canadians expect from today's meeting between the premiers and the Prime Minister? What are they hoping to achieve?
Yeah, Nathan, all of the premiers were asked to come into this meetings with short lists of the projects that they think would be crucial for their province in order to build the Canadian economy. So for Ontario, for example, Doug Ford talked about federal funding for small modular nuclear reactors. He's talking about access, all-season access to the Ring of Fire to extract critical minerals in northern Ontario. By province, it differs. A deep-sea port in James Bay is another one that's on Ontario's list. And so these projects differ province to province, and we're expecting a federal shortlist to come out of the shortlist provided by each province. We're expected a federal shortlist to come out today, highlighting some of those main projects that the federal government wants to move forward on. The big question marks are what those projects are going to be, and certainly the one that's most controversial at this point in time is a potential bitumen pipeline from Alberta to the northwest part of British Columbia, and that's because Alberta is pushing for this. Lots of Western Canada is pushing for this. BC is not. Nikki Sharma, the Deputy Premier of BC, is here today, and she said she is opposed or has an opposing view to what Alberta wants. And so this is going to be the challenge from these meetings, is not only what's shortlisted, but how does Mr. Carney try to find some common ground between these provinces who at times are going to be at odds when it comes to what projects they want to see approved and how they move forward. Where there is agreement is on reducing internal trade barriers, improving trade corridors. So BC, for example, wants better rail connectivity with the rest of Canada. That's something that Saskatchewan would certainly appreciate. We've seen how their economy has been hampered in recent years by labor disruptions in the rail corridor, trying to get grain to the Port of Vancouver. And so there are areas where they can cooperate and where they can work together, but there are also these very significant challenges that do exist when it comes to issues that they're divided on. And Alberta is certainly framing this as a national unity issue as well. And so the communique, the release that is put out by the premiers and the Prime Minister after this meeting is going to be really telling, not only in what it includes, but also in what it doesn't mention. And that's going to be key to watch when it comes to some of these larger projects. It's also worth highlighting the Alberta Premier made it very clear today that she doesn't think it's likely we're going to see an east pipeline or a pipeline heading from the west to the east through Quebec. She's focusing her energies on connections with northern British Columbia.
All right, CTV's Colton Prale in Saskatoon. Thank you.
Meantime, the Ford government is moving to limit debate on Bill 5, controversial legislation which aims to speed up mining projects.
The bill has drawn criticism from Indigenous groups and environmental advocates. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris explains.
Anger over Bill 5 shows no signs of abating. The province's only First Nations MPP taking aim at the Premier.
Premier is telling untruths. That's the truth.
An accusation outside the rules of legislative debate.
Draw the comment.
I'm not withdrawing. Speak.
Sam Momakwa, you have been named.
The NDP's deputy leader kicked out of the House. His party continuing to raise issues with the legislation that creates special economic zones where some provincial and local laws may not apply. Their likely applications include speeding up mining in the Ring of Fire.
Will the Premier do the right thing and scrap Bill 5?
The government stresses it will work with First Nations after the bill becomes law.
In no way does Bill 5 infringe on treaty rights or compromise the duty to consult. And in no way, shape, or form do we consider the duty to consult red tape.
But Indigenous leaders say they should have been brought in earlier.
Good relations and honor is reached by sitting down with First Nations and speaking to us before any legislation is developed, not after.
There's concern about a one-size-fits-all approach to consulting First Nations.
There's many treaty relationships that all vary as far as what we've given the new governments on our lands.
The government has tried to smooth some concerns by allowing First Nations to add their own special Indigenous economic zones.
Quite frankly, it's putting lipstick on a pig.
First Nations leaders believe the Prime Minister should be watching carefully what's happening with Bill 5. Mark Carney is planning similar legislation aimed at speeding up development. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
There's been another setback in the ongoing labor dispute between Canada Post and its workers' union. Yesterday, Canada Post rejected a proposal from the Canadian Union of Postal Workers to send their dispute to binding arbitration. It follows a request from the Crown Corporation to have the Jobs Minister step in and force unionized employees to vote on its latest contract offer.
Arbitration is a long, drawn-out and very legal process. It would leave our employees still without a contract. But more importantly, it sidelines their right to vote and puts their voice to the side.
We're still able to bargain. That's not going on right now. But you know, no one's walked away at this point.
The union has been in a legal strike position since May 23rd, but so far has opted for an overtime ban instead.
A second round of peace talks between Ukraine and Russia today has ended in Istanbul after just over an hour. Expectations were low after an escalation in the war between the two countries over the weekend. On Sunday, Ukraine launched 117 drones on military bases deep inside Russia. It marked one of the country's largest counter-assaults against Russia's invasion to date. The attack came after Russia launched its largest ever aerial attack on Ukraine the night before.
Well, the talks in Turkey were not expected to lead to a breakthrough. Both sides were trying to avoid straining their relationship with the White House. A leaked copy of Ukraine's proposals included a call for a ceasefire lasting at least 30 days. It also called for the return of all prisoners held by each side, as well as Ukrainian children taken into Russian-held territory, along with a meeting between the Ukrainian and Russian presidents.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in Lithuania for a summit with allies today. Before the peace talks ended, he said if there was no progress, Russia should face new sanctions. Lithuania, Poland, and Romania have also expressed support for Ukraine to join NATO.
Mount Etna, Europe's most active volcano, has erupted, sending a massive cloud of ash into the sky and tourists running for cover. The eruption began overnight, and ash and smoke are still rising into the area today. Mount Etna is one of the most active volcanoes in the world, with its last eruption happening in February. Italy's Volcanic Ash Advisory Center has issued a red aviation alert following this latest eruption. Lindsay.
Well, last night and this morning, there were frost advisories in place for portions of cottage country. The advisory has come to an end, and today is going to be a bit of a better day for spending time in the garden. Here's a look at your forecast. 23 degrees, that is very near normal. And the sunset time tonight, close to 9 p.m. Those days continue to get longer. We are at an 8 on the UV index. That is very high, so you know what to do. And heat is going to build for tomorrow and for Wednesday. Then we're looking at a seasonal temperature trend into the weekend. Stay with us. A detailed look at your 7-day forecast is coming up after this break here on CTV News at noon.
Well, here we are into the month of June, and I have to say the weekend, it was fresh, right? But we are into June now, and I feel like it's going to feel like the temperatures are looking good this
Yeah, it almost as if Mother Nature knows it's the month of June. Let's turn things around, turn up the heat, which we're all waiting for.
Turning over a new leaf, turning the page of the calendar, and exactly turning up the heat. We're going to notice it really as early as today. Not so much heat and humidity today. That's more a story for tomorrow. But today is comfortable, it's sunny, and there's more of this on the way. Even beyond the hot days, we're going to trend pretty seasonal from here on out, at least for the next 7 days. Let's get to your forecast. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. Let's talk about this morning's sunrise. Do you see that red hue in the sky? Okay, the reason for this is the fact that there is some wildfire smoke that has drifted from Western Canada into the lower Great Lakes. The particles in the air create that red tinge. You can see that as the sun continued to rise, the color faded away, but drifting smoke is going to be part of the weather story here for the next little bit. Let me show you on this map. You can see the thicker yellow color drifting once again across southern Ontario for tomorrow. We'll get a little bit of a break, and then some of that smoke could return for next weekend. So just a heads up on that. Otherwise, though, all is clear. We are under a dome of high pressure, so not a lot in the way of active weather. We might need to do a little watering of the lawns and gardens ourselves because not a whole lot of help from Mother Nature this week, although we are watching this front that is going to swing through late day Wednesday and bring us the potential for a few thunderstorms. So here's how it plays out. I'm just setting the forecast radar in motion to show you mix of sun and cloud or mostly sunny skies. Here's midday Wednesday. We'll pause it right there. You can see still mainly sunny skies, but as the day goes on and we head into the evening hours, chance of some late day storms potentially. See the orange and the red there? That's indicative of some thunderstorm activity. And then behind that front, cooler air, and also a bit of an unsettled day on Thursday, which we will talk about in just a moment. We're now at 21 degrees in Toronto as well as Windsor. It's 17 degrees this hour in Muskoka, 18 in the nation's capital, and 20-degree temperatures currently in Geraldton, Sudbury, as well as Timmins. Our forecast high for today in Toronto is 23 degrees. Normal this time of year is 22, so finally we are where we expect to be at this point in the season, now in early June. Looks like a good one for your evening sports forecast, not anticipating any cancellations, unlike the last couple of weeks, some of those days. Tonight's low, also where it should be, about 13 degrees here in the GTA. And then check out tomorrow's highs. 27 degrees in the city of Guelph, 28 in Aurora. Factor in the humidity, it's going to feel into the 30s in many areas, including for you in Huntsville. There's the 7-day forecast. Our unsettled Thursday, cloudy with a few showers. But look how the temperature holds around seasonal right into next weekend. That's the weather for now. Nathan, I'll send it over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. The Blue Jays have the day off after wrapping up a sweep over the Athletics on the weekend.
And he's hit it hard to deep right, and it is gone!
The Jays took the lead with a homer in the 8th inning and scored 6 runs in the frame. They went on to win the game 8-4, completing a 4-game sweep of the Athletics after earning their 5th straight victory. The Jays will be back on the field tomorrow when they welcome the Philadelphia Phillies to town.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, more people are now covered under the Canadian Dental Care Plan. We'll have more on the expanded eligibility when we return.
We're following developing news. 2 workers have been injured in an industrial accident near Edmund Avenue and Weston Road. This is a live look from the CTV News chopper over the scene. Police say a wall collapsed in the area shortly after 11:30 a.m. 2 workers have become stuck in the soil as a result of the collapse. Of course, we're going to keep on following that story. Meantime, people are often told to trust your gut, and now researchers are taking a closer look at the connection between our guts and our brains.
They're looking into whether a possible treatment for Alzheimer's could be found at your local grocery store. CTV's Allison Bamford explains.
It turns out milk doesn't just build strong bones, but possibly sharp minds too.
The gut is our second brain, as we could say.
And a potential treatment for Alzheimer's might just be in the dairy aisle.
If the gut is working well, so everything is going to be improved as well, right? Especially the brain.
At the University of Saskatchewan, Anna Silva and her team are testing compounds in milk kefir, a fermented drink similar to yogurt, to see if they can slow the progression of Alzheimer's in mice. The team is advancing previous work done in Brazil that studied kefir effects on fruit flies with promising results.
It's kind of natural for us to look at something that is like a natural product and imagine and see something that is more than just a food.
Serena Malta has been part of the research since day one, now visiting from Brazil to continue the work.
We started with 2 undergrad students, and now we have so many people in so different countries and so many experts that join us in this journey.
And it doesn't stop at dairy. Lucas Bernardis is also testing Saskatoon berries to see their effects on Alzheimer's.
This could result in a product that we could buy in supermarkets, store, pharmacies. So seeing it reaching this far, it's pretty awesome.
Encouraging research that for Silva is a full circle moment. She lost her grandfather to the disease in 2012.
I was an undergrad student back then, and I was doing biology, and I decided okay, this is what I want to study.
This research is part of a much larger puzzle that focuses on the overall gut-brain connection, with much more to learn about how what we ingest can impact what happens up here. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
More people are now covered under the Canadian Dental Care Plan. Canadians between 18 and 64 years old can now apply if they have filed their tax return, have a household income of less than $90,000, and are not currently insured. The dental plan, which is now in its second year, originally prioritized seniors over 70. Nearly 3.5 million Canadians received coverage in the plan's first year. Officials are also reminding people the plan needs to be renewed annually. Millions of Canadians, meantime, are without a family doctor, and some are turning to artificial intelligence for medical advice.
However, a team of Canadian researchers has found when it comes to accurately diagnosing a health problem, services like ChatGPT are wrong more often than they're right. CTV's John Rao reports.
Yeah, so ChatGPT is my new doctor. Welcome to the team.
On social media, it's been promoted by plenty of patients.
Using ChatGPT as my functional doctor.
People self-diagnosing health problems by typing their symptoms into a chatbot. But just how accurate are the results?
There is a lot that ChatGPT is still getting wrong that doctors will be getting right.
A team led by researchers at the University of Waterloo looked at ChatGPT's version 4 and put it to the test, throwing at it open-ended questions modified from a medical licensing exam. And the results less than reassuring. Just 31% of responses were entirely correct. Only 34% were deemed clear.
If it's telling you that this is the right answer, even though that's completely wrong, then yeah, that's a big problem.
The study concluded any medical advice from chatbots should be cautiously approached due to a significant risk of misinformation.
ChatGPT is now better than your doctor.
While headlines have touted studies finding AIs outperforming doctors on multiple choice medical exams, the researchers worry people may place too much trust in a chatbot's response and skip seeing a real doctor entirely.
It could tell you everything's fine when there's actually that serious underlying issue. And they might just read it, be like, okay, everything's okay. But in reality, they should go to that medical practitioner.
Other experts note chatbot responses can sound very persuasive, even when they're wrong.
It's certainly something that people are using, and it's probably an uphill battle to tell them not to, but don't make decisions based on it.
I'm going to put ChatGPT to the test. And while the researchers acknowledge the AIs keep getting better, for now, relying on them alone could put your health in harm's way. John Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
And still to come, what the Bank of Canada is expected to do when it makes its next decision on Wednesday. We'll have a preview of the interest rate plans when we come back.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Life in Toronto, the traffic, the cost of living, the hustle and bustle can spark frustration for some and criticism, but a fresh perspective is revealing some of the things we often take for granted. Sam East, host with 99.9 Virgin Radio, joins us now for our regular Monday segment, Chronically Online. Great to see you, Sam. Happy Monday. There's a Reddit user from Ohio sharing their love for the city after visiting for the first time. Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, you listed some of the laundry list of complaints that we're all guilty of making from time to time about our fair city. But this person from Ohio was urged to come visit Toronto after her husband, who's from here originally, said it's such an amazing city. She made a post about this on Reddit, listing out all the things that she loves about Toronto, and it's getting a lot of traction on the Toronto subreddit. It's titled, "My First Time Visiting." You know, she says things like, "You all are so nice. Thank you for being so welcoming. It's made this trip wonderful. The city's so clean. Oh my gosh, how do you do it?" She mentioned the amazing cultures in the city as well. But the part about the post that's getting the most online traction right now is how much she loved Bulk Barn. She says, "Bulk Barn is now my favorite store ever. I told my husband we will come up strictly for this." And, you know, it's funny because we like to complain about the stores that we don't have here in Canada, but we have in the States. And then all it takes is an American visitor coming by and pointing out we got some good stuff going on here as well. Not to mention people in the comments here on Reddit saying a lot of fun things like, "Thanks for posting the positives. People here love to complain because they forget how great the city is. I wish more people were grateful for our awesomeness."
Aww.
And it's posts like this that make me appreciate Toronto despite what it can be to me sometimes. LOL.
Oh, I love that. Bulk Barn. Honestly, in my household, Bulk Barn is an activity. It's so fun. And I love how there was props for public transit because people love to complain about that. But apparently this user had a positive experience.
Well, the grass is always greener, right? They were marveling at how late the TTC is open for the public. And so, you know, it's a good perspective to have to see from a fresh set of vibes.
Yes. Okay, can we talk about, well, we've heard of spicy margaritas, but what's this new thing called spicy wine? Is it new? Like, could this be the new drink of summer 2025?
You know, the weather is finally starting to warm up, so we got patios on the mind, and TikTok, of course. This is added to the list of ideas from TikTok that nobody really asked for, but they're here and trending now. The spicy wine, as you can see here, people are freezing up jalapenos and putting them in a chilled glass of white wine, particularly Sauvignon Blanc. And I know you might think, I don't know about all this. I'm good with my spicy margaritas, maybe not my spicy wine, but people are insistent. They're calling it divine, refreshing, and light. And actually, this isn't just randomness. Apparently, some fancy wino experts say there's an enzyme in the wine that is the same enzyme in the jalapenos, making it a very complimentary taste. So I don't know, Michelle, this might be the drink of summer 2025.
You know what? Don't knock it till you try it, right? And a lot of people like spicy. A lot of people like wine, this idea of marrying the two. Okay, let's try it and we'll report back, okay?
Okay, is that my assignment for next week?
Yes.
I will gladly take that on.
I'm not going to forget, because I definitely, anything with wine, I'll try it.
Okay, sign Michelle up.
Yay. Sam, thanks so much. Happy Monday to you. And remember, everybody at home, you can hear Sam on 99.9 Virgin Radio. It's every weekday between 2 and 5 p.m. Have a great show.
Thank you, Michelle.
The Hudsons Bay company shut its doors for the last time this weekend as Canada's oldest company completed its liquidation sale.
The move has left thousands of employees without a job. CTV's Kamal Karamali has more on the next steps for workers and the business.
This is what remains of Canada's oldest company. Hudsons Bay, woven into the fabric of the country's history, now left almost completely bare. Empty shelves, scattered items, odd and mismatched knickknacks scattered across the floor, with customers grabbing whatever they can.
What did you pay for this? $50. Was it worth it? I think so.
But this story is about them.
You won't work like 30 years and more.
The employees.
It's like our family's being ripped apart.
Yeah. More than 8,000 across the country left without jobs.
It's a loss of family. We've all grown together.
It's lots of emotions.
Imad Al-Jabori is one of them, speaking through tears.
This is very, very heartbreaking.
It's one last goodbye to the workplace that's felt like a home. Just like others, he's been let go without severance pay.
To be let go in the end without nothing, without even the slimmest slight of hope.
Facing financial challenges, the company initially planned to shut down all but 6 stores. But with no buyer in the picture, it later said it would liquidate those stores as well.
You know, think about it. It'll be the first time in Canada in 350 years that we haven't had the Bay.
Canadian Tire has made a move to buy the Bay's intellectual property, including the iconic logo and stripes.
We could see something on the order of, you know, a smaller format like a Winners or a Marshalls or some iteration of the brand in the market.
Questions now remain on what will happen to these massive multi-level storefronts, with many lease agreements already being snapped up. BC Mall owner Ruby Liu has announced her company will take on more than 24 leases in hopes of redesigning the stores in BC, Alberta, and Ontario.
Oh, sorry. It's okay. I wish you all the best.
But for these employees, there's an emptiness.
It's like a bad dream. I keep pinching myself and I keep telling myself this cannot be real. This cannot end like this.
Not knowing where to go next as this historic chapter comes to a close. Kamal Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
The Bank of Canada is expected to hold its key interest rate steady when it makes its next decision on Wednesday. However, some economists are warning keeping borrowing costs high could hurt the central bank going forward. Statistics Canada says the economy got off to a hot start in the first quarter of 2025, mainly due to businesses rushing to get exports over the border before U.S. tariffs took effect. The central bank held its policy rate steady at 2.75% in April.
Disney's earned more than $1 billion domestically after its latest live-action remake of an animated film topped the box office once again.
Troll hit. Hey, what are you doing?
Lilo and Stitch held on to the top spot with $63 million. It's now the second highest grossing film of the year after a Minecraft movie, taking in more than $280 million across North America. Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning placed second with just over $27 million. Karate Kid: Legends rounded out the top 3, earning $21 million in its debut.
Coming up, the stage production of Clue is set to end its run in Toronto this weekend. We'll take a peek behind the curtain when we come back.
Clue is set to wrap up its run at the Royal Alexandra Theatre this coming weekend.
CTV's Andrea Case got a peek behind the scenes of the popular stage production.
What's that in your hand? Created in 1940s England.
In the game of Clue, you'll figure out who done it with what and where.
The game Clue, originally called Cluedo, is the murder mystery which went from a board game to a film in 1985.
Every person in this room has the perfect motive.
Stand back!
For murder.
What do you mean? Murder.
And then an off-Broadway stage show.
A candlestick. What's this for?
Clue on stage is fast, furious, funny. The board game is also a whole lot of fun, but I think we might be a little funnier than the board game.
Broadway veteran Jeff Scarron, to me, a Martin Short lookalike, has had roles in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Beauty and the Beast, and The Lion King.
It was when I was a kid. My sisters were in dance. And then I wanted to, I think I just wanted attention. And so I started doing that. And then I discovered, acting. And that's what I, found that I really like doing.
In Clue, he plays the physical role of Wadsworth, the butler.
He's the butler that sort of arranged the evening. It's sort of the driving sort of force, wrangling all these insane people throughout the night.
And it's a murder mystery. 6 suspects have been invited to a dinner at Body Manor, and once they arrive, they all realize that they're being blackmailed by the same person, and from there, chaos and comedy ensue.
Mary McNulty plays Mrs. White, and when required, any of the other female characters.
It's been a blast. I've got a lot of people in my head.
The run of this North American touring show comes to an end in Toronto on Sunday. This version is not a musical, but there is a reason this slapstick farce has been winning over players and audiences for over 30 years.
It's taking place during the McCarthy era in America. There's just that paranoia in the air, which I think you know.
Kind of. Everything old is new again.
Exactly. But comedy never goes out of style.
Clue is on stage now at the Royal Alexandra Theatre until June 8th.
Let the game begin.
Andrea Case, CTV News.
You know, I did see that show. I'm reminded of how good it was. It's so funny, so entertaining.
Oh, yeah. Game's great, too. Let's get you caught up on weather. What do we need to know? Is it going to be straight sunshine, or do we have some weather, some rain to contend with?
Well, we're looking at sunshine for a good portion of the week. The short-range forecast looks bright. It looks warm, finally. We do see a little bit of active weather midweek, and we'll talk about that again in the 7-day momentarily. Here's a look at our current temperatures. 21 degrees in Toronto, a little cooler the further north you go, but our forecast daytime high today is 23. We're also seasonal overnight tonight under clear skies. Tomorrow, not only is it sunny, but it's several degrees warmer, 27 for the high. Humidex 30. Might feel even hotter than that into the day on Wednesday, but late day we could get into a few showers or thunder showers Wednesday night, unsettled for Thursday, and then there's an early look at next weekend forecast. Just a chance of showers, but seasonal with a mix of sun and cloud. Nathan and Michelle.
All right, looking good. Thanks, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great day.